And just like that, the NBA season is upon us once again. What is going on, y'all? 5 Sports Talk back at it with another video talking, of course, a little NBA, which is less than a month away, folks. The 2019-2020 NBA season. I'm so excited. There's going to be a ton of NBA content on the channel. So if you are new, welcome. Make sure to go ahead and subscribe, folks. You're going to want to subscribe. You're going to want to turn on my bell notifications to be notified every time I post a new video, because again, ton of NBA content, especially Bulls content, so you guys are not gonna want to miss out. So go ahead and subscribe if you haven't done so. Also follow me on my social media links down below for my Twitter and my Instagram, and on the screen as well. You guys see the whiteboard behind me, back by popular demand, the whiteboard videos, okay? And I'm giving you guys my official preview for the Chicago Bulls season. So we're going to be talking everything Bulls related, of course, with the roster itself, how it's shaping up after the offseason, where I predict the Bulls to finish in the Eastern Conference, a record prediction, and just my overall expectations for this team, folks. So there's a lot to get into. I don't want to wait any longer. Let's get right into it. So let's start with the Bulls roster itself. And I laid out the roster for you guys. Of course, we listed out all the positions and then the starters with the bench depth. Now, I wanted to kind of order it like 1 through 12 or 1 through 15, but I just thought this would be better. So let's, of course, go through the positions one by one and talk about how I feel about the Bulls' strength at that position, okay? And let's start at the top with point guard, which to me right now is our biggest question mark by far. And you guys will see why. We've got some pretty solidified starters at the other positions. Point guard, not so much, okay? And I listed out Tomas Satoransky as the first guy. Again, we picked him up in free agency this offseason. We signed him. He was previously on the Washington Wizards, the backup point guard to John Wall. So I have him listed here because here's my thing. Coby White is the rookie point guard we drafted, okay? And I have him behind on the depth chart. And then we've got Kris Dunn, who, again, had an underwhelming offseason last year, and the entire reason we wanted to upgrade the point guard spot was because Kris Dunn was not good enough. And then finally, Ryan Arcidiacono, who, again, he's a good, solid point guard, and he's one of Coach Jim Boylen's favorites, and the Bulls re-signed him, and Archie's nice, but, of course, he's not going to compete for the starting job. So it's really between these three, Tomas Satoransky, Coby White, and Kris Dunn. Here's my hunch so far. Coach Jim Boylen does not seem like the type of guy that's going to play rookies. And as much as I believe Coby White should start, I don't believe he will, from everything I've read for the Bulls beat reporters and training camp and everything that, it's been coming out of training camp. So to me, it's the, and this is one of the things where I'm not a fan of Coach Boylen. I think he's okay. I don't think he's that great, honestly, and I wouldn't have extended him. He's one of those old school coaches who believe, rookies have to earn their way to a spot, and just because he's a rookie, I'm not going to start him. And to me, it's just a bunch of BS, folks. I don't like that. I like smart, sophisticated coaches that are analytic driven, that are, more about, just putting the best players out on the court and not really, beholden to these like traditions, if you will. And Jim Boylen seems like a very old school coach. He talks about, all of these like weird things like, a player's soul, a player's, atmosphere. And it's just weird. I'm not a big Jim Boylen fan. You guys can tell by now, okay? But he is a coach we have. We're going to have to deal with it. So I don't think he's going to start Coby White, okay? Long story short, Kris Dunn got benched. So we already know that Kris Dunn is probably not going to start, which means that it's probably going to be Tomas Satoransky that's going to be the starting point guard for the Chicago Bulls. And you know what? I'm okay with that for now. I don't think it'll stay that way the entire season. I believe Coby White will earn the starting point guard job and force Coach Jim Boylen's hand, and he will eventually be our starter. So for right now, Tomas Satoransky, I believe, starts at point guard, and he's an okay point guard. Again, a career backup guy who's starting for us. He's solid, a good two-way player, a good three-point shooter. So I do think he is good. He's decent. But again, to me, he's a backup point guard who's going to be our starter. I don't believe he's a legitimate starting point guard in this league. But let me get to the other positions. Shooting guard, Zach LaVine. Again, remember I mentioned I'm not worried about the other positions as much. Our stud, or one of our studs, at the 2-guard spot, Zach LaVine, breakout season last year, about 23 points per game. Just was absolutely phenomenal. Has become a scoring machine. I'm looking for big things from him this year, folks. Zach LaVine, to me, needs to enter the conversation as one of the best 2 guards in the game. I believe Zach LaVine has the ability and certainly the talent to be able to average about 25 points per game, which is what the Bulls are going to need from him. He's going to be our main scorer, our main scoring option, and I believe Zach LaVine's going to have a huge, huge year. Denzel Valentine, who is to me a hybrid 2 or 3, but to me, this guy is really testing my patience. Missed pretty much all last year with an injury, and now this year he's starting another season kind of banged up. If he does not prove it this year, the Bulls should move on from Denzel Valentine. He was a pretty high draft pick. I believe he was a lottery pick, and he just has not panned out for the Chicago Bulls, hasn't stayed healthy, and when he stayed healthy, he's been pedestrian. He's been mediocre, you know? So to me, again, he is going to be the backup 2 or 3, but if he does not perform this year, it's time to move off him. Shaq Harrison, he's actually a point guard, but I moved him to the 2 because we've already got 3 point guards here. He's a hybrid 1-2. Played a lot last year because we were dealing with a lot of injuries, but again, he's just depth here. Let's move on to small forward, Otto Porter Jr., who we acquired from the Washington Wizards. Boy, do we love Wizards players, by the way. And again, Otto Porter Jr., one of the better 3-and-D guys in the league. A lot of people don't like Otto Porter Jr. I do. A lot of people, I believe, don't like him because of his contract. But hey, listen, can the guy produce? Yes. Is he one of the better 3-and-D players? Yes. And that is what you need in today's game. The more 3-and-D players you got, folks, the better. It's a spacing league, a 3-point shooting league, being able to defend multiple positions league, and Otto Porter does all that for you. So I like Otto Porter Jr. He's a good player. Is he overpaid? Yes, but that does not make it seem like he's a bad player, okay? Chandler Hutchinson, the second-year player that we drafted as well last year, and he had a decent year. He was a second-round pick, so not too many expectations, but I do believe I want to see a little bit more from Chandler Hutchinson to really solidify a bench spot, or else he could fall out of the rotation. Let's move on to power forward. We've got Lauri Markkanen, of course, another one of our studs. This team is going to be led by Zach LaVine and Lauri Markkanen. I think that's very clear. Both these 2 guys should easily average 20 points per game and, you know, compete for most improved player. I believe they have that capability, certainly the talent. And maybe one of these guys or both could compete for an all-star spot, okay? So Lauri, big things from him, one of the better young players. Doesn't really get talked about, folks. Again, I don't know why he's fantastic, but I love Lauri. Thaddeus Young, one of our free agent signings from the Indiana Pacers. Great depth for the Bulls. He's going to be coming off the bench behind Lauri. Thaddeus Young will probably be starting for a lot of teams in this league. So the fact that we have him coming off the bench, that's a plus. And here's the thing. With a young team, do you obviously want to rebuild with the right guys? Yes. That's why you need players that are veterans in this league that have won before. And Thaddeus Young with the Pacers has been a lot of playoff games. He's got a lot of playoff experience. He can teach these young guys how to win. So love Thaddeus Young. And one of the more underrated signings that we did this offseason, Luke Kornet from the New York Knicks. A lot of people don't know about this guy, but he is a 6'11", spacing center / power forward, if you will. He can play both positions. He's a 3-point shooter, and he's a shot blocker. So, like a stretch 4 or 5, what else do you need, folks? I think Luke Kornet is going to play a decent amount off the bench this year. You guys will be shocked, okay? I'm telling you, he's good. And then center, Wendell Carter Jr., who, again, we are expecting big things out of. I believe ESPN has him as the Bulls' breakout player this season. I need Wendell Carter Jr. to show up and show out and solidify the center spot. I know he's a little undersized, but I believe he's got the talent to give us like 15 and 10 this year. So I want Wendell Carter Jr. to get past his injuries and be able to just be the anchor that we need down low, because we don't need him to score. We got Zach and Lauri for that. Defend, rebound, and be able to finish around the basket, Wendell. That's all we need from Wendell Carter Jr., and I believe he's going to do it. Daniel Gafford, the backup center, the rookie center that we drafted this year, I believe from Arkansas. He had a phenomenal summer league, really proved himself. I believe he's going to come off the bench, just provide a bunch of energy, grab a bunch of rebounds, block a bunch of shots. Think a young Tyson Chandler. That's what Daniel Gafford reminds me of. And then Cristiano Felicio, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it, okay? We're just paying him at this point, and I'm just waiting for his contract to run out. This is literally just a ticking time bomb because Cristiano Felicio is awful, okay? The only reason he's on the roster is because we're paying him, okay? So I don't want to talk about Felicio. He better not get any minutes this year. I don't want 0 minutes. I want 0 minutes from Cristiano Felicio, period. So there's the roster for the Chicago Bulls. Again, I'll highlight the players, of course, that I feel pretty good about. Zach LaVine, Otto Porter Jr., Lauri Markkanen, Wendell Carter Jr. I like Thaddeus Young a lot. Luke Cornett, I think, is going to surprise some people. Daniel Gafford, I'm a fan of. And then as far as, the point guards, of course, I'm high on Kobe White. And then the rest of these guys, I'm indifferent / whatever about. So to me, the Bulls definitely have some talent on this roster, and they can certainly make some noise. But here is the important question. How much noise can they possibly make in the Eastern Conference? Of course, you guys see I've got 8 spots right now because we have to decide, will the Bulls make the playoffs this year? Because certainly this is a good roster. Absolutely not a championship contender. But can they make the playoffs? And that is what Gar Forman and John Paxson talked about in the press conference. The goal for the Bulls this year is going to be to make the playoffs. So that is the next step in our rebuild, okay? We're a couple years into the rebuild. Ever since we traded away Jimmy Butler, that was the beginning of the rebuild. Now we're a few years into it. So now it's time to climb our way back to the top and compete at the title contender level. But we're not there yet. We're at the, hey, let's get to the playoffs, because last year we went, my marker would work. Last year we went 22-60. But here's the thing with the record, 22-60. A lot of guys were hurt, folks. Zach LaVine was hurt. Lauri Markkanen was hurt. Wendell Carter Jr. was hurt. Otto Porter Jr. was traded midway through the season. That's 4 out of our 5 starting 5. We basically were playing a D-League team. I'm telling you, folks, Shaq Harrison was getting hella minutes last year. So this record of 22-60, it's not really as bad as it looks, okay? The Bulls finished 13th in the conference. Of course, I think 4th in their division. But it's not as bad as it looks. So let me explain. We're going to go to the board here with the top 8 teams in the East. And there's a couple of teams, of course, we have to say that are clear favorites, right? So the 76ers at the top. They're the best team in the conference. And my pick, again, to represent the East in the NBA Finals. There's way too much talent here. They're the best team in the East. Yes, even better than the Milwaukee Bucks, which is my number 2 team. And these are, again, the cream of the crop for the Eastern Conference, the Bucks and the Sixers, with no Kawhi Leonard now in the Eastern Conference for the Toronto Raptors. So these are the 2 givens, right? So I'm just talking about the teams that we know for sure they're making the playoffs, okay? Then we're going to move on to the Boston Celtics. And the Celtics lost Kyrie Irving, but they added Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker's good, folks, okay? So the Celtics won't have much of a drop-off, a bigger role for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They added Enes Kanter. I know he's not a good defender, but he can still score, folks. So I believe the Celtics, who still have Gordon Hayward, another year away from that injury, they will definitely make the playoffs, okay? At 4, Indiana Pacers. Victor Oladipo coming back. You know the Pacers are still going to be a playoff team. They signed Malcolm Brogdon, a very good 2-way player from the Milwaukee Bucks. You can bet your good money Indiana is going to be in the playoff mix. Let's move on to the number 5 spot. And, of course, we've got the Toronto Raptors. Yeah, just because Kawhi's gone doesn't mean you fall off the face of the planet, right? You were not a championship contender anymore, but you were still a playoff team, a well-coached team with Nick Nurse, the most improved player last year, Pascal Siakam, still got Serge Ibaka, Kyle Lowry. So I believe they will compete for a playoff spot. But, of course, no more championship contention. Let's move on to number 6, and we've got the Brooklyn Nets. Yes, no Kevin Durant, but you still got Kyrie Irving, and they made the playoffs last year with D'Angelo Russell. Kyrie's a little better than D'Angelo Russell. Again, I will take Kyrie Irving over D'Angelo Russell. Some people might not, but I will. And if you make the playoffs last year with D'Lo, I got to assume you're going to make it with Kyrie, right? So to me, you got to put the Nets in here. And now it gets a little tricky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this cutoff line here, and I'm going to put it the 9 and 10 spot, because at 7, I feel pretty good about the Detroit Pistons, folks. Last year made the playoffs as well. I believe they were 8 seed. And they were 41 and 41, folks. That is the number that got into the playoffs last year for the Eastern Conference. This number wouldn't get you in the Western Conference, but it did the Eastern Conference. The Pistons, Blake Griffin coming off a very good year, an all-star year. I believe he's going to take another step forward. You still got Andre Drummond. They've signed Derrick Rose, who's going to be a good addition off the bench, where he could possibly start. This Detroit team, folks, it's underrated. I believe they will absolutely be competing for the playoffs spot, and I believe they'll probably make the playoffs, okay? That's why I've got them at the 7th seed. Now, here's where it gets tricky, okay? Let me be optimistic here and say the Bulls get in the 8th seed, okay? But then, if the Bulls get in the 8th seed, I got to kick out the team that made the playoffs last year, the Orlando Magic, who are returning everybody, like Vucevic, Augustine, Gordon, Isaac, literally everybody. And then you still got the Miami Heat at number 10. And even number 11, a team like the Atlanta Hawks with Trae Young and company, they could be up and coming. So to me, the Bulls will hover somewhere around here, okay? The 8 to, the 9, 10, 11 spot. It's not a given, obviously, that they're going to make the 8th seed because, again, the Magic could make it. The Heat could make it with Jimmy Butler. The Hawks could make it with, Trae Young and company. But I do believe the Bulls will hover somewhere between 38 to 42 wins, okay? So that is a big improvement, again, from 22 and 60 to 38. And you guys might think, Fives, that's a big leap, right? But really, it's not because injuries, folks. This Bulls team easily wins 30 games last year if it wasn't for injuries. And I believe this, hovering around this range, lets you hover over here. And the Bulls could make the playoffs. I'm going to say right now, I believe they will as the number 8 seed. If Zach LaVine and Lauri Markkanen do what I think they are capable of doing, folks, which is literally average 20-plus points per game, 25 points for Zach, be in contention for most improved, and almost get in as an all-star, like have an all-star type of year, this Bulls team can get the 8th seed. So there you have it, folks. That is my season preview for the Chicago Bulls. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree. I believe the Bulls have the ability to make the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference and compete, certainly for the playoff spot. We've got a pretty talented roster in terms of, what we had here from years before. But let me know your thoughts, folks, for what you have for the Bulls in the Eastern Conference. Would love to know. Leave a comment down below if you agree or disagree. As always, thanks for watching.